The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to Filmjitsu, the podcast that wields films like deadly weapons. We are your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
On this episode, Mike has to review one of the most notoriously awful sequels ever produced because I made him watch the Golan and Globus produced train wreck that was Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Was this movie the cinematic kryptonite most have claimed? Or did Mike somehow manage to draw something redeemable out of what was sadly Christopher Reeve's last portrayal of the character? We'll soon find out, and afterward, we'll count down our bottom 5 superpowers, a list of allegedly extraordinary abilities that we believe are anything but. And because of some sad news that arrived shortly before recording this episode, we're again dusting off Kick 2 Pick 2 for a tribute to a fallen hero played by a flawed man. Only this time, we're forced to choose the 2 least bad movies from a quartet of stinkers. But before any of that, it's a bird. It's a plane. It's the trailer for the colossal box office and critical dud 1987's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
The greatest hope against the threat of nuclear war is Superman.
I'm going to do what our governments have been unwilling or unable to do. Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
The greatest threat to Superman is Lex Luthor.
Nobody wants war. I just want to keep the threat alive.
Superman 4, Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman, Jackie Cooper, John Cryer, with Mariel Hemingway and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. Superman 4, his most important adventure, the quest for peace.
Mike, at the time of this recording, James Gunn, the director of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, as well as the fellow behind DC's second pass at the Suicide Squad, is enjoying a moment in the sun. His reboot of the DC Extended Universe, or the DCU, whatever the hell they're calling it this week, with a more humane, less omnipotent Superman, has made over $435 million worldwide. It also has earned an 83% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. While most seem to prefer this sunnier version of the Man of Steel as the first entry in a new direction for DC, some have taken issue, saying he's, quote, too woke. Like everything nowadays, this does appear to have a right versus left debate, with many on the conservative side preferring the Zack Snyder take on the character. But without getting too deep into that score, I wanted you and I to discuss the much maligned Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the 1987 box office bomb that was considered so bad that it, as well as Superman 3 from 1983, they were both scrubbed from the original series and replaced in chronology by 2006's Superman Returns. Considered by most to be the very worst Superman big screen outing, I chose Superman 4 not because I wanted to torment you, well, not entirely, but because if there was ever a truly, quote, woke Superman, it was the one who, in this movie, honors a child's wishes for a more peaceful world by ridding the planet of all nuclear weapons. While almost every cinematic variant of Superman has been problematic, and Gunn's latest isn't clear of some questionable ethics, in Christopher Reeve's 4th and final turn as the character, we get what might actually be the single most accurate take on Superman as a caring, thoughtful, and unconflicted good guy.
Sure. Yeah.
I imagine you found watching this flick kind of a chore. But I have to ask, framed against this huge debate about the latest Superman, what did you think of the character in this film?
I think for me, this version of Superman was like the most and least fun version of the character I can remember. Because on the one hand, you made a great point. I did like that they decided that we were going to get the maybe purest version of Superman in this film. Like, his motives aren't selfish in any way. He's not chasing a girl. This really does seem to be about the greater good. And so it is interesting to get that very wholesome version of him. This is also a painfully dull, pedantic kind of script that does the character no favors. Yeah. Comic book movies have become overwrought, self-important box office porn, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like I could use a kitschy, lighthearted goofball of a movie.
Yeah.
Instead, I got an overwrought, self-important bummer of a movie that wanted to just talk about nuclear deproliferation.
Yeah.
A worthy cause in 1987, but maybe took some of the fun out of the Superman in its execution.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It isn't a terribly fun movie to watch, but I will say, I think I enjoyed it a lot more than the Henry Cavill Superman movies, because for me, the portrayal of the character being more accurate as a quote unquote good guy that's cares about human beings, because he really did in this movie, right?
Yeah,
at the very beginning, he saves individual cosmonauts.
Right.
All throughout the movie, he saves individuals, but his real goal is to save the world. He finds Earth and the people that live here beautiful, with the exception of our wars against each other. It's a very noble film in a lot of ways. I guess you're right. Self-importance. I think that might be what it is.
It was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
Smallville is in economic shambles. Mom and Pa Kent are dead. The Daily Planet has been taken over and
Rupert
turned
Murdoch.
into this sensational rag, right?
It tries to balance so much. It brings back Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, this time inexplicably with hair.
Right. But I'll tell you, a scene where Superman takes a giant net with all of the world's nuclear weapons and flies it into the sun is so dumb. See, I was like, well, where did he get a net that fucking big? That's all I could think of. It was my biggest problem.
Why take them all and put them all in one net, like all the eggs in one basket? And throw them in? Why run that risk? Why not just chuck them one by one?
Right.
Did you like the fact that the explosion that happens when he throws all of the nuclear weapons into the sun is the same exact explosion that happens when Nuclear Man is born in the film? It's the same shot. Because the movie was supposed to cost, I think, $36 million, and it ended up costing something like 17 instead. Eight of which I think went to Reeve.
Right. Yeah.
So
we can certainly talk about how that happened.
I think more than anything, that's what hurts the movie. I don't even know that the script is the biggest problem.
This movie was caught in a weird place in time in 1987. It was a weird time for this franchise. It was a weird time for specifically visual effects, right? Because 87 was like, it was just between the digital breakthroughs of the late 70s and early 80s, like Star Wars and Tron, right? Though that era of special effects. But CGI was just in its infancy, right? In some of our favorite flicks right around the corner, Terminator 2 and The Abyss a handful of years later. And 87 sits smack dab in this no man's land between the two. And so what happens here is that the Superman effects of 1978 look dated and silly by this fourth film. And so I came away feeling like, remember that first movie where the tagline is, "You'll believe a man can fly"?
Yeah.
In 78, that might have been true, but in 1987, this movie might have convinced me that a man cannot. The effects haven't aged a day since 1978, and it shows. That is not a compliment for this movie. It looks cheap and silly.
It does, especially the sequence where Superman and Lois, when they're falling together, it's just they're outlined in blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. And then they actually recycle shots from other movies, from the other Superman movies. Crazy cost-cutting measures.
Yeah.
And it's too bad because there's a lot here that I feel director Sidney J. Furie managed to capture that felt like the first two movies. It felt more like Donner's Superman, more like Lester's Superman. I think we can kind of leave out the nightmare fuel of Superman 3. The sort of embarrassment that was Superman 3.
Yeah.
The scenes in the Daily Planet felt like the Daily Planet scenes from the other films. The chemistry between Kidder and Reeve was largely pretty much intact. I liked Mariel Hemingway as an addition to the film. I felt like there was a lot there that was working. I liked Jimmy Olsen. I think that those characters, having them all back, felt good and right.
Yeah, there was just not a thing for any of them to do, because when the goal of the movie is rid the planet of nuclear weapons, there's only one guy who can do that in the movie, and everybody else just kind of has to like hang out while Superman goes to work. And they're like, oh, when's Dad going to get home? And that's most of what the movie is.
Yeah, that is true. And when Lex Luthor gets sprung by his California dude nephew, played by John Cryer, oh dear.
We could do bottom 5 John Cryer characters, honestly.
Yeah, though that might have to happen at some point.
All right. Did I do okay or what, Uncle Lex?
Lenny, I've always considered you the Dutch elm disease in my family tree. But this time, nephew, you did fine.
It's hard to imagine that we haven't done a canon film for a main review. That's mind-blowing, honestly.
It is. I think we've steered clear because this is a tinderbox. I mean, it's really tough to. Where do you start?
Where do you start? Do you start with Death Wish 4? Do you start with one of the American Ninja movies? I think there's 40 of them. Right? I mean, there's so much of that stuff. Like, where
Delta Force? What do we do here?
Right.
Or do we go art house and do something like Apple, which was their disco musical that totally tanked and was really, truly, I think, the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much our audience knows about Canon Films and Golan and Globus, but they were Israeli producers who started in the 1960s churning out dubbed skin flicks from like Scandinavia and translating them into Israeli and then releasing them and making a decent amount of money. And their story is insane because in the 80s, they just started going nuts and they were making all sorts of interesting films. If you want to hear the story about Canon Films, I highly recommend there's a documentary called Electric Boogaloo, The Wild Untold Story of Canon Films. If you like nudity, there's plenty of it in this movie. I think they basically took every nude scene from a Canon film and put it in this movie.
Which are not slim pickings, by the way.
Absolutely not. But if you want to fall down a zany rabbit hole that includes those Scandinavian skin flicks, Chuck Norris, naked space vampires, and Jean-Luc Godard doing Shakespeare, this movie is the one you need to watch. Some of the stories are absolutely crazy, so I highly recommend that. But Canon was on its way down in 87. They crashed. By 89, they were gone. It was done. And Superman was and one of your favorites, Masters of the Universe,
for
with
sure,
Dolph Lundgren, were really the last gasp for them.
Jay, something you didn't know is that I have kind of an interesting personal history with the quest for peace.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Because when I was a kid, and there's no way around it, I just have to point out here how much younger I am than you.
Oh, yes,
I'm not being a jerk, but it's germane to the conversation, even though.
Okay,
so
fine.
let's just get it out of the way, right? Like the difference between you and I is nearly geological. But so when in 1987, I was younger than you were at the time. I rented this movie with my grandmother so many times.
Oh, wow.
My sister and I would stay at our grandparents' house, and Grammy would take us to Blockbuster and let us each rent something. And I always came away with Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and my sister ended up with either a Pippi Longstockings movie or Escape from Witch Mountain. And I have seen this Superman more than any other Superman by a billion miles. Okay. And when I was a kid, I remember being scared of Nuclear Man.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, those Lee press-on kryptonite claws, yeah.
Seeing the same character with adult eyes, it was like, what is happening? What a wasted opportunity with this character. Yeah. There are so many interesting things you could do with a villain that really puts Superman through his paces. I think maybe as this most recent Superman film did, but nope, not here. We just get not He-Man covered in force lightning. It's ridiculous.
I couldn't figure out what exactly his powers were. They just were so arbitrary.
Right.
It's like you're from the sun and yet you have electricity and you're sending out heat bolts, but you can fly. And it was all very much a random.
He's so hot that his feet melts concrete when he walks. He's got the scratchy fingers. And I think it was like when he scratched Superman and broke the skin, it was like Superman got radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
So I think he's poisonous too.
And it was very clear that there was a lot more movie originally because all of a sudden the movie takes these giant leaps from scene to scene. Lois visits Clark and Clark's not feeling well. He's got like a cold. Yeah. And the next time we see him, he is aged 40 years and his hair is all fallen out and he's white and he's got the last vestiges of Krypton power, which looks exactly like kryptonite. So I don't know why he's gripping it.
Right.
Anyway, reasons. And that is going to give him enough power. Again,
it's a one-up. It's a Mario Brothers one-up is what he has.
Correct.
There. Then he takes
exactly
it,
what
and then he's
was.
Superman again.
And there was no dramatic tension at all. It just pops up. He's like, "Oh, I have this thing."
He had it the whole time.
So fucking stupid.
For me, I think that the real problem here is that the whole thing needed a fresh coat of paint. It was like we're now driving a used vehicle is what the problem here is.
Okay.
And it looks like a car that you're ready to trade in. Like the paint is chipped. Everything looks a little like it doesn't quite fit. Even in 1987, where like the fashion was at a weird place, Lois outfits are like sort of professional, but also Fleetwood Mac at the same time.
They're weirdly matronly.
Yes. Like, there's a lot of like, this is just a movie that didn't know what decade it was going to be a part of. So it wasn't a part of any of it. And the whole thing, even let's talk about Margot Kidder here, is by 1987, for Superman 4, she wasn't the fresh face she had been a decade earlier. And those 10 years had been rough on her, right? She'd had a marriage to John Hurd that lasted, 6 days? And then another marriage that only lasted a year. She started struggling with bipolar disorder. She was in a rough place come 1987. And in a lot of ways, it's almost emblematic of the larger story of the film. Like the whole thing just looks a little run down to me. And rather than try to slap a fresh coat of paint on there and give us a fifth movie, I think closing the doors for a couple of decades was a good idea.
Yeah, well, they did announce even before Superman 4 was released, they announced that they were making Superman 5. Because that's how Golan and Globus worked, right?
Right.
They had a whole bunch of plans that they didn't follow through with. There's a Captain America movie. They had Marvel properties. But nope, didn't happen.
One of my favorite stories you brought up before is that the sets for the Masters of the Universe sequel that never happened got recycled into the sets for Cyborg, which is another movie that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Golan and Globus were good for a couple things. Boobs and scaring children, right?
It turns out.
Titillating and scaring children.
Hi.
I missed you, Clark.
Well.
It's so boring up there with Lois and Superman. Let's go do something wild.
Well, gee, they're expecting us at Wouldn't Be Light.
Yeah, you're right. How can one man be so square and so delicious? All right, let's go chit-chat. If I have to face Superman, so do you.
Lacey?
Oh, Clark.
I think that revisiting Superman 4 for me reminded me of how much I loved Christopher Reeve.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yes.
I love him as Clark Kent and I love him as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he did both. He brought such confidence and nobility, but quiet charisma to Superman. And then the goofy, there's so much goofy Clark Kent in this movie.
It's really good. He's got the physical side of Clark Kent down by this point. I watched Death Trap not that long ago. It's just, what a great performer he was. Playing against type so much of the time because he knew he was a good looking guy. So he was able to, kind of like Chris Hemsworth does sometimes,
a little bit,
sort of like
very
use
similar
that
energy.
as a comedic muscle that he exercises and kind of minds comedy from like, hey, I'm a good looking guy. So when I'm dumb or silly or whatever, it kind of flips your expectations on its head a little bit and works. And so, something like Death Trap, or even, I think you talked about it, the scene where he's pretending to be sick is such a stagey performance where he's being a little bit like Broadway big in that moment, but he's also putting on an act. So, and that's the incredible thing about him. I mean, let's do the math on that scene, right? So he's a man playing a different man pretending to be sick, right? Like that's the reality of the film in that moment. And Christopher Reeve somehow actually does manage to layer those three things into that performance. That scene specifically for me reminded me so much of what an incredible talent he is. And it really got the gears turning for me of like, what could have been?
Especially as we started investigating these multiverse movies that DC did with The Flash. And then, of course, everything that Marvel does was all multiverse madness, right? Literally, there's a multiverse of madness with Doctor Strange. But the idea that maybe Christopher Reeve as an older man could have come back as the Kingdom Come Superman or one of those types of things that, it would have been so great. It really makes me wish so much that we lived in a different timeline where he was able to come back as a Superman that was older and stuff. Yeah. But we didn't get that. And I think it is both lovely and sad that this is the parting appearance for him, because I think the heart is so much in the right place, despite the fact that it's a money grab in so many ways. We talked a little bit about how Superman jumps with Lois off the building and it's this terrible blue screen.
They go through a canyon at one point, but nothing's to the proper scale.
But right before that, he says to himself almost quietly, you can never put one above the rest. And he says something like, it's just so unfair. And I think he gave her a kiss or something like that. And I get goosebumps thinking about this dynamic of I can't put her above. And he allows her the memories to return. He gets this moment where he can have Lois, the Lois that loves him and that he loves. And then he has to step away and put the fog back over her mind. And I just thought, man, this guy gives it all. He's Jesus, right?
Yeah.
He's Jesus. He's doing it all for everybody else. That's a good way for this character to go out. But it is ultimately a hard watch because so much of it doesn't work. When it becomes an episode of Three's Company and he's being Superman and he's got to date Lois, but then he's becoming Clark and he's got to date Mariel Hemingway's character, he has to keep changing. It's enjoyable, but at one point you do step back and go, this is Superman, right?
Right. Yeah.
This feels pretty amateurish, pretty silly. And I think that that's part of what makes this movie fail is the fact that a lot of it feels amateurish, even with Gene Hackman doing good work as Lex Luthor, even with Christopher Reeve maybe delivering one of his best performances as Superman.
Yeah, I think what it does is undercut the grandeur of the spectacle of 1978's Superman. And
Big
that
time.
If they had just said, you know what, kind of like an athlete past his prime, maybe you don't need those extra couple of seasons out on the field. If It's a little bit lazy, I think, to say like it would have been better if this movie had never been made. But I do think in a way it would have preserved a legacy for Reeves' Superman franchise had this film not happened that unfortunately isn't possible because this movie did happen and it did kind of cut the knees right out from under the original. And that was a hard thing for me to watch this time through.
Did you feel as though when you watched this, because it was after you had seen James Gunn's Superman in the theaters, were you sort of shocked by how there were certain plot points that mirrored each other? The fact that Superman in both movies takes on an altruistic, I know what I need to do for the human race to keep it out of its own way.
Yeah.
Now, I will say Gunn's movie, he does it unilaterally. He doesn't really discuss it with anyone. He just does it. And apparently he inflicts torture on the leader of Bulgaria or whatever that country is that he's a part of by sticking him with cactus needles or something like that.
That's the word. Yeah. I think part 4 really had like a golly gee shucks, isn't this swell? Everybody at the UN kind of raises their hand for it. They're all on board with Superman just deciding he's going to take all of the world's nuclear weapons. And there's not a lot of sort of, the movie's not interested in having a conversation about the politics of nuclear weapons or any of that kind of thing, which is interesting because it was something that Reeve was so passionate about. The movie never really got in the weeds about like nuclear weapons in the world. It was just like, they're there and I'm going to take them. And that was it. So as kind of overwrought and preachy as it wasn't political in any way, which it could have been if it had wanted to, but boy, did it not want to.
Yeah, he wasn't stepping in the middle of the Israeli-Palestine conflict the way that the new Superman more or less was, or Ukraine, Russia, whatever parallel you want to apply. And then I thought it was also interesting that he does fight himself in both movies.
Right, yeah. When you're a god among men, it's really hard for you to ever feel like Superman is ever in actual danger. So the only way they can kind of handle that in a movie is by creating a character that is basically a clone of Superman. Otherwise, who gives a shit?
Right.
So I've always been, frankly, a little bored by Superman because I don't know that the movies have ever really figured out how to do much with the character. And I don't have a lot of love for Superman as a character on film as much as I really do dig the history of the character and what he stands for. And there's been a lot of think pieces lately about how Superman kind of pops up in our zeitgeist when we need him, which is interesting. That's kind of what was happening here in 87 with nuclear arms and all that kind of thing. But I guess I'm happy to dip into the Superman universe and then dip right back out. And what this ended up being for me was a little bit of nostalgia for going to the Blockbuster with my grandmother and renting the same movie over and over again. I would get this and some kind of animated Aquaman something or other.
Still better than the James Wan Aquaman, I'm sure.
Absolutely it was.
Absolutely. Even if it was that old Super Friends animation. Still better than Aquaman.
That's what it was. It was one of those kind of things.
I would watch that. Wonder Twin Powers activate form of any movie other than Aquaman.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mike, let's face it. Superman 4 gave us one of the worst villains in movie history. Nuclear Man isn't exactly underpowered. He's got heat blasts, solar, electricity, and what appears to be those kryptonite press-on nails.
And hot feet. Don't forget his hot feet. He's got those
hot feet. Yes, his hot feet.
That's right.
But his abilities are so inconsistent and illogical. It's like they were generated by like a Mad Libs.
Right.
So at one point, if I'm not mistaken, he actually freezes Superman in like a block of ice and then throws him into space. What the hell?
It's like me as a little kid drawing superheroes in a notebook where I just give them all the powers I can think of because I'm a child drawing in a notebook. Only this is the villain in an actual major motion picture.
100%. In honor of this chaos, I thought we'd count down our bottom 5 superpowers in movie history. And I cast a wide net here Some of these powers are just plain dumb, and others are ones that like nobody would ever want.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And honestly, my approach being inconsistent, it kind of makes this a spiritual cousin to Superman 4 itself. Where even Superman's powers are totally random.
Yeah.
Because do you remember when he rebuilt the Great Wall of China with his magic masonry I-beams?
I sure do. Put it back together like a dot matrix printer, didn't he?
One more item to mention on this is that we agreed to exclude the undisputed queen of cursed powers, and that would be Rogue from the X-Men movies. Her touch absorbs powers and kills people. There's this legendary Reddit thread that surfaces about this power of Rogue's every so often. And the commenters roast her whole character arc and the character of Storm, whose insistence that they are perfectly fine the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this so much that I just want to read a little bit of it. One guy comments, I think you missed the part where the girl who kills everything she touches, in all caps, wants not to kill everything she touches, in all caps, and everyone dismisses her credible misfortune just because the lady who is, all caps, Avatar of the Storm won the fucking superpower lottery. Right. And then another commenter right underneath wrote, finally, a cure for my chainsaw hands, decreed Chainsaw Hands Joe. There is no cure, said Johnny Five Dicks. There's nothing wrong with us. So, with that in mind, Mike, please tell me what your number 5 is in our Rogue / Chainsaw Hands Joe bottom 5 superpower tribute list.
You know that Rogue is just for the incels, right? It's like, sorry, the girl can't touch you. Like you can't touch the pretty girl. You'll die from it. So it's not your fault that the pretty girl doesn't touch you. It's just it's too dangerous for you. That's what that's all about.
Oh my God.
Well, my number 5 are the powers that every character in the movie All Superheroes Must Die do not have.
Oh.
This is a little bit of a cheat within a cheat here because
sure, okay.
In the 2011 film, it's about a group of superheroes that are stripped of all their powers at the very beginning of the movie and then don't have them for the entire rest of the film. It's a superhero movie with no superpowers, which is a cool idea and an interesting workaround for a $20,000 budget. But the movie's pretty terrible. It has 2 stars on Letterboxd, and somebody called it a rad idea gone wrong, which is just like a dead ass bullseye of a description for this movie. It was written in 4 days, shot in 15 days. And it shows because the movie doesn't depict a single superpower a single time. I think if the rest of the movie had worked, maybe this wouldn't have made the list. It might have been a cool idea.
Sure.
Don't watch it, Jay. All Superheroes Must Die. Anybody who watches this movie is going to wish themselves the same fate.
My number 5 is from Ms. Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children from 2016. In a movie that's stuffed with bizarre super children, there's invisible boys, reanimated puppets, there's a girl who floats unless weighed down by iron shoes. Then there's Enid. She grows plants quickly. That's it. Big whoop. Even her climactic battle move is a pumpkin summoning. Which might have been useful if the villains were, I don't know, squash intolerant or something, right? Directed by Tim Burton during a time when most people had turned the page on the director, I personally think this is among his very best. I think I've talked about it on the show a couple times. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend you do because it's a great adventure flick. That said, it tried to capture a goth Hogwarts vibe.
Yeah, right.
But when your team includes Gourd Girl, you're not exactly striking fear into evil time-looping monsters. So at my number 5, Enid and her vegetable vibes from Miss Peregrine.
She could just make plants grow kind of fast. Like my Aunt Nancy can make plants grow kind of fast. That's like, she should have a movie, I guess. Well, Jay, my number 4 was actually placed in my brain by you subliminally on our last episode.
I incepted you?
You did, yeah.
Did your subconscious have machine guns?
It probably does. We shouldn't look.
Fair.
In the setup for this week, you said that Superman was in the zeitgeist about 100 times.
I did.
About 100.
Stop saying
it was actually,
zeitgeist.
it was more like twice, I think, honestly, but that's all it took to put this in my brain, because my number 4 is the short-lived character of Zeitgeist from Deadpool 2, whose superpower is spitting acidic vomit.
Oh, yeah, the bile guy.
Yeah, right. Which that should be considered, first off, just a disgusting and dangerous medical condition that requires a gastroenterologist, not a superpower. That's a medical condition, right? But that doesn't really matter, because Zeitgeist is a member of X-Force in Deadpool 2.
Oh, that's right.
But he almost immediately parachutes into a wood chipper, vomits on the teammate trying to save him, which severs his arm, and then dies. Right? So I don't have a lot of love for the Deadpool movies, but that sequence is pretty good. But acidic vomit sounds like a nightmare for a superpower. I would never save the world if it required me to vomit acid. I'd be like, well, you're all on your own. I don't know what to tell you.
And like all the villains are just loading guns with like Rolaids and shooting.
The guy who killed Uncle Ben would definitely get away, because I'd be like, I am not barfing acid to stop this. Forget it. Forget it. Go. Just keep going.
That shit hurts.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like,
God.
I'm sorry.
Oh, my number 4 comes from 2 different movies, technically speaking, more so the second one. And that is Swamp Thing from 1982 and The Return of Swamp Thing from 1989.
Yeah.
Wes Craven's original Swamp Thing from 82 gave us a stoic, plant-based anti-hero with strength, resilience, and frankly, an unsettling ability to regrow his body from spare parts. Like little twigs and little sprouts that came out, and it's so gross.
He also could grow plants quite quickly.
Maybe I'm going to go with a theme, and every one of mine are going to be people that
you took a real botany angle on this one, I guess. Okay.
I hate greenhouses. Anyway, in the sequel, The Return of Swamp Thing, he tears off a piece of his mossy body and he hands it to Heather Locklear, and then he encourages her to eat it so she can hallucinate a glowing swamp sex fantasy. His power isn't just regeneration, it's psychedelic produce-based seduction.
Oh my God, swamp roofies?
Swamp roofies.
Oh, no.
And you won't be surprised, the sequel was helmed by Jim Wynorski.
Okay. Of course it was. Yeah. And we're back.
And we're back. Now it all makes sense. Locklear received a Razzie nomination, of course. It has since become a beloved B-movie oddity, but it is proof that salad shouldn't be foreplay. So that is my number 4. I would say it's just Return of Swamp Thing from 1989, but you have to go all the way back to 82 in the original.
Of course.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, my number 3 might be controversial, because you might push back that this isn't a superpower. And I didn't really like fuss too much about superpowers versus just like weird shit kids can do.
Oh, fair.
And so my number 3 is very easy.
Okay.
I see dead people.
Yeah, man, that is such a great choice.
That.
Wow.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were going to call BS and be like, that's not a superpower. That's like
it is it's a supernatural power.
Okay. Yeah. What a nightmare for that character. But then also, if you think about like having that superpower, you're like, no way. I would almost rather spit acid.
The things that kid sees.
Yeah, really, really.
Oh my God,
up.
That little girl that was poisoned by her mother. Oh,
yeah.
It's so scary.
It's
scary. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. So that's it.
What
for me.
a great choice.
Thank you. I still have 2 to go, if you can even believe it.
No, I can't, because these are really good. Mine get silly at this point, I feel like.
Excellent.
Very, very silly.
Yes.
My number 3 comes from We Can Be Heroes from 2020. Robert Rodriguez, who did The Spy Kids and The Faculty, he's always walked the line between imagination and just straight up cheeseball madness.
Yes, yeah.
In this low-budget Netflix kids flick, he gave us Slow-Mo, a kid who moves in slow motion all the time.
Oh.
That's it. There's no bullet time reflexes, no Matrix-style dodging. He's just a liability in every scene.
That's the worst friend you could have.
His big contribution in the finale, being slow enough to draw fire away from others. Rodriguez has always thrived on low-budget imagination, and he's also responsible for another idiotic superhero, Shark Boy, from 2005, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. But even by his standards, Slow-Mo is a stretch.
Yeah.
Despite this, the film was a streaming hit with kids, proving once again that children will watch literally anything if you slap capes on it. So that's my number 3, Slow-Mo Kid.
Well, I'm glad you went silly with your pick, because my number 2 is also, well, you'll see, but we have come a long way from I See Dead People here with my number 2. We're going to lighten things up because in 1999, Mystery Men came out.
Yep.
Gave us a lot to choose from, but there's really only one choice. Well, look, respect to William H. Macy as the guy with the shovel, right? The Shoveler, I think is his name.
The Shoveler.
Yeah, the Shoveler. It absolutely is not a contest. It goes to the Spleen, played by Paul Rubens, whose superpower is really, really ultra potent farts.
Super flatulence.
They knock people unconscious.
Oh, God.
Let's just go ahead and hear the story about how he got those powers.
It all started when I was just 13 years of age. One day, while walking with some friends, I accidentally cut the cheese. Well, in my adolescent awkwardness, I blamed it on an old gypsy woman who happened to be passing by. Big mistake! The gypsy woman placed a curse upon my head. Because I'd smelt it, she decreed I would forevermore be he who does it!
Rubens is awesome here. Like, such a fun performance as this character. His character work is so good that he steals the movie. And don't get me wrong, this is a dumb flick, but damn it, if every time it comes on the air, I don't laugh about it. It's one of those like sorry, not sorry comedies for me. Actually, thinking about Christopher Reeve got me thinking about Paul Rubens and all of these other characters that weren't his big iconic character. Right. And I always loved these little Rubens performances that weren't Pee-wee. And this is
like
a really
Batman
good one.
Returns.
Yeah.
When he was Oswald Copperpot's dad and stuff. Yeah, gotcha. For sure.
Super fart power.
Oof.
Oh, yeah.
Rough.
Like you can pull his finger and it's like he shoots bullets. They're like fart bullets. And everybody at the bar just kind of falls over in a row. Like it's a shooting gallery. It's so
awful.
gross.
Ugh. God. We're going to move on to my number 2, which would be from X-Men in 2000. And you could choose probably a few different ones from X-Men. But for me, Ray Park, who played Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, well, he's given a far less dignified assignment here. Toad, a mutant with a giant tongue, gooey venom spit, bile, farting. We are on a thing here. And the ability to jump like a gymnast hopped up on like Monster energy drinks.
Yeah, parkour. It's parkour.
Director Bryan Singer, who's Usual Suspects, Bohemian Rhapsody, right? He assembled this really great cast. You had Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, you had Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, right? But poor Toad, he was treated like a sticky afterthought, right? And his biggest moment, getting zapped into oblivion by Storm, when Halle Berry delivers the most ridiculed line perhaps ever in movie history. You know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning?
Same thing that happens to everything else. Yeah.
Fun fact, Joss Whedon wrote that line. That Joss Whedon. He later assessed the joke fell flat because of the delivery.
Oh, well.
But let's be honest.
Nice of him, isn't
nobody was going to save Toad. There was nothing to be done. There was nowhere to go with that character. Poor Ray Park.
He's just, the poor guy has
have
been,
a long tongue.
He's just been punked out of so many movies, right?
I feel that way, yeah.
Why?
I mean, he had that ballistic X versus Sever, but whatever. Okay.
Jason, my number one is here for a menagerie of reasons. Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, got me thinking about renting movies when I was a kid with my grandmother. And that's where my number one comes from.
Yep.
Because when I was renting The Quest for Peace, my sister was either renting Pippi Longstockings or 1975's Escape from Witch Mountain, a Disney film that is as 1975 as it gets. It's about these two children that probably aren't from this earth. It's got wicked, like Close Encounters vibes where these kids are they're being called back to Witch Mountain and they don't really know why. There's Tia and Tony are these brother and sister. Tony has telekinetic powers that kind of work when he plays the harmonica. There's this crazy scene of him like bebopping on a harmonica in a way that no child could ever have. Like Tony, aside from being the Witch Mountain kid, is also a child harmonica prodigy. So he it's wild. He just like John Poppers this harmonica and his toys start like bebopping around the room. Like Disney was trying to make something that was more for teenagers than what it usually did, but it was too goofy for teenagers, but kind of too scary to be goofy. It's a mess, but the telekinetic powers that work when you play the harmonica, shut the fuck up.
Well, my number one comes from this year.
Oh.
And that's from Thunderbolts.
Oh.
And what may be the most fascinating and deeply confusing cinematic superpower in recent memory, Thunderbolts introduces Bob, aka the Sentry, an impossibly strong, unstable being capable of turning his enemies into charcoal smudge trauma stains.
Okay.
These victims are trapped inside their own worst memories, banished to a psychic dimension of despair. Oh. It's powerful, yeah, but also deeply, deeply disturbing. Like if Dolly met Escher in a Godard film.
Okay.
Thunderbolts is, I thought, brave in its exploration of PTSD and grief, but Bob's powers are such a mood whiplash. They feel like an A24 movie wandered onto a Marvel soundstage.
Oh, wow.
Still, the character's duality, Sentry and Void, light and darkness, was handled with surprising nuance. Critics praised the risk-taking. Audiences left wondering, did I just cry during a Marvel movie? Yeah, you did. You did, because I did too.
Huh.
And that was right after watching someone become a smear on a wall.
I still haven't caught up with this flick.
Oh, no, it's a great, great flick. Awesome cast chemistry, really tight direction, cool action scenes, and a very different kind of climax for a Marvel film than what you're used to.
Wow.
But at my number one, just because it's so fucking weird, Bob, Sentry, Void. He has like 3 names in the movie. So everything in the Thunderbolts doesn't really have a name.
Okay.
Like the New Avengers are actually who they are, but they're called the Thunderbolts. So yeah, great flick. But that is my number one.
Well, we managed to get in existential smearing and super farts, and we went all the places, I think, with that list, Jay. Well done.
Existential dread and super farts. Mike, recently we started dusting off our old game of Kick 2, Pick 2, specifically to pay tribute toward heroes, if you will, or luminaries that had passed on. And this week, shortly before this recording, we found out that Terry Hulk Hogan had passed on. And immediately, if I'm not mistaken, your phone started blowing up. I know I sent you a message.
I had about 150 something students in a Zoom class. I had to stop teaching to check my phone to make sure nobody in my family was in the hospital because my phone exploded. Maybe more than when my own mother passed away.
Oh, dear.
Like, people reached out when that happened, as they should. But when Hulk Hogan died, the whole world was like, shit, we got to check on Merrigan.
You were a huge fan of the character of Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
And I think that it's really important to draw that distinction because not many people who know about the actor that played Hulk Hogan would say that he was a particularly good guy.
No. And this is a really important thing for me, right? Is separating the character that I grew up with, just as if I had been reading a comic book and he came off the page, right? The character of Hulk Hogan, the red and yellow, the Hulkamania, that character it lives forever in my brain and in my heart. The man who portrayed him was a very different sort of person, and that's sort of irrelevant to me.
He was, for sure.
That guy couldn't get out of his own way enough to be the decent person his own character told us all we should be when we were growing up.
Well, Hulk Hogan's oeuvre, his cinematic achievements are not probably called achievements. Right? Truthfully, I think what we're doing here in a game of Kick Two, Pick Two is removing maybe two of the more offending things from his resume to maybe make it look a little bit better.
Addition by subtraction here for the Hulkster. And to be clear, this Pick Two, Kick Two does not negate these films from potentially showing up as future episodes, because we're going to do a Hulk movie eventually.
It's inevitable, I'm sure. So I went ahead and I picked 4 movies for you to choose. I have to kind of invalidate myself out of this. I don't think I've seen any one of these 4. I have a sense that maybe you've seen most of them, or at least you know a good amount about all 4 of them. The first one is Mr. Nanny. The second is, of course, the most well-known, Suburban Commando. Third, also well-known, No Holds Barred. And, of course, number 4, your beloved Santa with Muscles.
Right.
What say you, Merrigan?
Well, this is going to be harder than I thought, because if I kick 2 of these films, they disappear.
Right.
But easily,
That's right.
Santa with Muscles is the one that should be the full Filmjitsu review out of these 4. Like, for sure. For sure. So I don't know what to do here, because I feel like I need to preserve that so that it continues to exist in the world.
Shit, you caught on to my plan.
For me, though, I have the 2 that I know I would keep outside of this. And so I'm just going to run the risk here and let Santa with Muscles go.
Oof.
And as much as I miss maybe the film that started all of the babysitters, not an appropriate babysitter genre, Mr. Nanny,
yes.
I could probably let that one go, because Suburban Commando and No Holds Barred are pretty much everything I want in Hulk Hogan movies.
Oh, yeah. And what is that exactly?
As much Hulk Hogan as possible.
Oh, God.
And if I can, other professional wrestlers. What I love about No Holds Barred is that No Holds Barred influenced WWF wrestling at the time, wherein Tiny Zeus Lister, who played the villain in No Holds Barred, showed up in WWF as that character.
Oh.
And then there was real life like feud between Hulk and this guy. There were matches, pay-per-view events. It was a big Hulk Hogan storyline.
Oh my God.
As a part of his career. And so I couldn't possibly take that off the table. That leaves me with Suburban Commando, where Hulk Hogan is a bounty hunter from space.
Oh yeah.
And he's being chased by other bounty hunters from space, one of which was played by Mark Calloway, who wrestling fans will know as the Hall of Famer, maybe the second best after Hulk, in my opinion, The Undertaker.
Oh, wow.
The Undertaker is in Suburban Commando. Before he was The Undertaker, he is the silent bounty hunter from space chasing after Hulk's Suburban Commando.
all of the sudden I want to watch this now with my youngest son.
I love it. And this comes at such a interesting time, Jay, because for years and years and years, I packed up my love of professional wrestling and put it aside. Right? Like I grew out of childish things.
Okay.
Right? Always having loved the Hulkster deep in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a month ago,
yeah,
my little sweet 8-year-old daughter fell in love with the Royal Rumble when I showed her professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And me and this kid have watched hours and hours and hours of just Royal Rumbles since then. She is all in.
Wow.
And
that's
so
great.
wrestling has kind of like come back out of the toy box for me.
Oh, that's great.
In a really fun way with my kid. And then the goddamn Hulkster died.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, man.
No. Just, why now? Why now? So very easily, Suburban Commando and No Holds Barred. I'm going to have to, even though I love Hulk Hogan as a nanny, because then I can also love Vin Diesel as a nanny, or Ice Cube as a nanny, or anybody else as a nanny. But Mr. Nanny's got to go. And I'm sorry, Santa with muscles, but you're no Suburban Commando. I don't know what to tell you. Jason, I kind of stumbled into this Filmjitsu Summer we're having. We didn't really discuss like a specific like hot Filmjitsu Summer vibe, but that's where we found ourselves.
Yeah, kind of.
And I want to keep that train a-rolling.
All right.
We've been a little bit serious, right? We've been like
Yeah,
disarming nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
We've been saving cruise ships from tentacle monsters.
Castigating bullies.
Yes.
Right,
and so
yeah.
maybe we need to just get away from it all.
Okay.
Maybe we need a little vacation.
Oh, all right. Sounds
maybe
good to
somewhere
me.
tropical, maybe somewhere nice.
All right.
Maybe what we need to do is stop by a little place that I like to call Weekend at Bernie's Part 2.
Oh, shit. Is this Terry Kleiser as the dead guy and like Jonathan Silverman and Andrew McCarthy?
The second one, though.
Oh, shit.
I'm pretty sure that they go down to the Caribbean, they go down to the islands, they get mixed up in some voodoo nonsense, I think.
Oh, no.
But maybe not even.
Why is Bernie not buried yet?
That's a good question this movie owes you an answer to.
Okay. So what's our bottom 5 going to be? Is it bottom 5 corpses?
No, sir.
Oh.
We're taking a trip down to the U.S. Virgin Islands with our dead body friend.
Okay.
And so we're going to do our bottom 5 islands. We have an awful lot of tropical paradises in film, and they're not always great.
They aren't, and they don't have to be tropical, right? I mean, they could be just an island, right?
Right. But it needs to be, I think, sort of relevant to the story. You know, like the island has to be kind of part of it.
Oh, for sure.
In some way.
I get it.
In some way.
I definitely had one immediately. So
I think I might as well. Bro.
Okay.
So, but boy, I can't wait. This is a really shitty movie.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of excited because it's been a little while since I've really cringed through something.
Yeah.
And I feel that part of me aching for something. So that sense of rage that I get needs to be fed. So
yeah, but that's not exactly what I'm going for here because it's vacation, baby. So like this might just be the like get a little bit drunk and watch this movie of the summer.
Well, awesome. Be sure to come back next time when I review Weekend at Bernie's 2 and Mike and I count down our bottom 5 islands. But until then, we've been your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
And we'll see you next time.
Stalno mislim na te, hoću znat sve karte, vježbat ću sate i sate. Karate, vježbat ću dok zadnji mi kjaj zastane izađe.
Roro, you turned into Scooby-Doo.
I did. From the Rexman movies.
Like, hey, Scoob, you're fucking up the podcast.
All right, Rory. All right, Reggie. Road from the restaurant.
This is the podcast that the world needs, is just two assholes pretending Shaggy and Scooby have a podcast.
The Scooby and Shaggy podcast.
Yeah. Shagcast.
Would actually be better than most podcasts that are out there, including ours.
Well, at least now we have a side project. Good. We get time for that.